Alrighty. Well, I think we are probably at a good point to get started here, so we'll go ahead and kick things off. Thank you all for joining our this version of our Copilot webinar series today. Today we'll be focused on Microsoft 4002, prepare security and compliance to support MS-365 Copilot. We've got an amazing subject matter expert on the call today who will be going through this training, Rajesh Gogia. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides and housekeeping items here just for EnterOne exclusives and top of mind promotions we're running right now. And then I will pass it over to him to kick things off. But the Q&A will be enabled throughout the session today. So if you have any questions while Rajesh is presenting, please put them in there and we will monitor the Q&A and answer to the best of our ability throughout the time. This session will be recorded, as well as the information being shared today will be sent your way following the conclusion of the session. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive right in. My name is Saxton Barnes. I'm our Director of Strategic Growth and Vendor Relations, focusing on Microsoft here at EnterOne. Wanted to talk through a couple of things that we've got going on and we put together to support your Copilot journey. So EnterOne has put together an exclusive program called Copilot Road Mapping. The goal with this is to help you scale and accelerate the scale of your Copilot adoption wherever you're at in your journey right now. So whether you're at a very beginner level or you're looking for more of a mastery training, we've kind of broken out a roadmap that tiers that out. And you can kind of plug in wherever you need to, essentially, through the trainings that we offer. We can help analyze that with your team as well and customize some of these different tracks based on the different personas or groups within your organization that are using Copilot today. So this is a great opportunity and program where if you're using Copilot today, but maybe think you're leaving some on the table in terms of using it effectively, to meet with us and let us help you align strategy behind that with the trainings that we provide. So again, this will be shared with you in a more in detail version of this. But just to kind of talk through how we tier this out, essentially we have 4 different levels where we've suggested courses that would align based on where you're at. So level 1 is going to be, again, that more foundational level where we suggest AI 3025 to be that kind of foundational training, starting your Copilot journey, going through the basics. Level 2, MS-4004, we'll talk a little more about specific use cases with Copilot. We'll get a little more specific with the different personas and roles that could potentially be using this and how they should leverage it to its full capability. Level 3 will be more of a deep dive with MS-4018, so just building on those use cases there. And then level 4 will be more of those mastery sessions where we're talking about building agents and how to utilize Copilot to its fullest with MS-4019 and PL7008. Again, these are just the suggested paths. These are not necessarily the paths you have to take. We can help customize this path, or if there's a specific combination of these courses you'd like to explore, we do have the capability to kind of build around your requirements as well. So happy to have these conversations with you if you're interested. My contact information will be shared with you. Feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to walk through more of this. And then again, the information will be shared via PDF, just as an overview. That will have some live links out to these specific courses as well. I do want to share our upcoming EnterOne Microsoft training schedule as well. These are our top courses, a lot of them focused around Azure as well as Copilot. We will be sharing the PDF with live links that you see displayed here for this, as well as our entire Microsoft training catalog for you to reference. Again, if you know who your EnterOne representative is, please contact them if you're interested in any of these courses. If you're not sure who that is, feel free to contact me directly as well, and I can get you in touch with the correct person. Finally, just wanted to mention we are rounding out with this session our AI Skills Fest. So we've had an awesome show out and turnout so far with this program. And one of the big things that we're driving throughout this is our empowered platform. So this platform is a completely free, on-demand training site that is built through our parent company, Trainicate, where you can scan that QR code and for a limited time access complimentary training via video with suggested training tracks, all centered around AI, Copilot, and other Microsoft products and solutions. So feel free to scan that QR code or visit that link, create your account there, and explore the robust training options you have that, again, will be all on demand. Awesome. So any questions with anything that I went through today, please feel free to ping me directly in the chat or reach out to me via email. Again, we will follow up with this information. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Rajesh, and stop sharing my screen. Thank you, everybody.
Lovely, that's great. All right, wonderful. All right. So first of all, I would like to welcome all of you for this MS-4002 session, and thank you for joining up. My name is Rajesh, and I'm going to be the trainer for this session. Although this session is going to be for approximately 90 minutes, all right. The whole idea behind, first of all, I would like to confirm, just give me a quick reaction with a thumbs up. I hope I'm loud and clear, audible to all of you. Can you just quickly give me a quick reaction with a thumbs up? All right. All of you, please. Lovely. Great. Thank you so much. So soon I'm going to share my screen as well. First of all, let me give you the plan. We are going to start with a small introduction that will just take a couple of minutes. And then I'm going to brief you the agenda for the today itself also, with that what topics we are focusing. But in a nutshell, the whole idea is to make you familiarize and make you some with basic understanding about from security, governance, compliance, in context of Microsoft 365, in context of Azure as well also, all right? So there are so many features, isn't it? There are so many solutions behind to that one itself. So during this discussion itself, we'll try to explore some of the problem statements, all right? And looking to that problem statement, what kind of a solution is going to be suggested with a use case? And what is going to be the objective or the outcome of that solution as well, all right? See, that is how we relate. Because whenever we want to implement something new, we can't simply implement, isn't it? Why? Because there has to be some business case, there has to be some sort of a requirement, isn't it? Or that there has to be some sort of a situation which comes with every organization. With those situations itself only, we'll get to know, okay, hey, what exactly they're looking up for, what challenges they're facing, what problems they're facing, and what are the key areas. And then after you look up to the, okay, what objective you are going to look up for and what solution has to be suggested. And then the platform comes in rather than just jumping into the solution. Do you agree with that one, all of you? All right. So do let me know once you are able to. Okay. Can you please confirm if you're able to see my screen and my presentation is up as well? Sexton, can you please yes or no
Yep.
very quickly, please?
Yep. Looks good. We can see it.
You can see it, right? Okay, wonderful. That's great. So first of all, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Rajesh, and it has been more than 26 years into this industry. And I started my journey with my electronics way back in 1990, early 1990, and completed my diploma as well. And worked into that particular field for 5 to 6 years. You can imagine working with the televisions on the motherboard at the component level of troubleshooting. So that was how the journey was for 6 years. And with that one itself, I got inspired with the computer hardware and networking. That was again towards the end of 1990s, and completed my computer hardware and networking diploma. And since then, never looked back. So that is how the journey started for me. All right. So if you see here, I've been taking care of all the products, Azure, architect, design. It has been 1.5 decades now since Microsoft actually introduced the Azure. And since then, I've been working on to the Azure services. Similarly, taking care of the entire virtual desktops, cloud PCs, enterprise voice, and also includes all the series of Exchange as well, from the very early version till the latest, and also handling the entire GitHub series as well. Not only this, I've been taking care of the entire products and the series of which goes with the Copilot as well. Why? Because now you know that Copilot is a need for everyone, no matter what kind of a product, no matter what kind of industry you're working in, no matter what kind of a organization you're going to work in with. So Copilot has been integrated and ingested in every aspect into our daily lives as well, isn't it? It makes the things so simple because it makes very convenient for us to use, isn't it? Even let's say, for example, drafting from an email, composing an email, and creating up the presentations, drafting up the Word documentations, calculations onto the Excel and Teams, and summarizing the meetings and everything, isn't it? Everything day to day. So that all includes with the Copilot. And also, I've been taking care of Microsoft 365. That has been with the very early version of Office 365, BPOS, that has been around 1.5 decades now. So since Microsoft actually started with BPOS, since then I've been taking care of the entire product. So you can imagine over the period of time, all such upgradations and enhancements have been taken. And what is also not being mentioned here itself, I've been taking care of the entire series of Citrix as well. It has been more than 20 years. I have been taking care of all the Citrix products from MetaFrame, then Presentation Server, then ZenApp, Zen Desktop, now Citrix Cloud, and many, many other more products as well. All right. So this has been a journey for me itself. All right. So now let's move on to the product. Let's say here. So the learning path agenda basically would be just to give you some understanding about key prerequisites for your Copilot adoption, some best practices for the data governance, security and access controls, how you can evaluate and prepare your content in your SharePoint, and what should be the strategies to drive your readiness and adoption, and obviously what can be the common pitfalls and how to avoid them. All right. So this is going to be the agenda, and if in case if you've got any questions coming up, you can post up into the chat as well. That will be really answered and responded back itself also. All right. Okay. So this was already done. Now let's move on to the section. So see now, when we talk about the key prerequisites for Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption, see, adoption is not a challenge, isn't it? The thing is basically what product are you looking out for? Which service is going to provide you that particular product? Isn't it? I hope what I'm writing onto the screen that is clearly visible and readable as well. Yes, please. Can anyone quickly confirm? Yes, no?
Yep, it looks good.
Wonderful. That's easily readable as well. And the font size is okay. Good. So when we talk about the prerequisites is something which is very important. Why? Because before you implement any kind of a product, let's say for example, okay, hey, someone says, Rajesh, would you be able to install an Exchange server? I say, yes, I would be, but I need to know what can be the prerequisites. So definitely the OS requirement, the hardware requirement, the system requirement, isn't it? The tools and other tools to be installed. Definitely yes, the prerequisites. This is something very important. And Same goes with the Copilot as well. That means if the organization has already planned to go and adopt with a product, the question here comes up with a prerequisite. Definitely yes. As I told you earlier, things always starts with a problem statement, isn't it? Why? Because see, unless there is a problem, there is no solution, isn't it? Why? Because every lock every lock comes with a key, isn't it? If there is a lock, there is a key. So if there is a problem, there is would be a solution for that one itself also, isn't it? So if let's try to explore the problem statement. See what happens. Every organization is very eager. Yes, they are. That is very true. Now these days, every organization is very eager to adopt what? The Copilot. So when we talk about Copilot itself, and yes, eager to adopt, often overlook the foundational. This is something a challenge. This is sometimes a challenge, isn't it? No? Why? Because the challenge says that, okay, hey, my contents are unprepared. Too much of files which are there in my SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and they are lacking with the metadata, they are lacking with the labels, they are lacking with the tags, they are lacking with the labeling, isn't it? They are lacking with the governance. Is it only with the content? No, not at all. Please. Weak identity. This is also something a bit challenging. Why? Because if we are having the weak identity, the security becomes a key challenge for us, isn't it? Why? Because imagine I'm just relying on the username and password, isn't it? Means only the simple credential. That can be the biggest risk. Why? Because I'm not using multi-factor. I don't have any conditional policies. And the result becomes what? The result is something, okay, the unauthorized users may exploit the Copilot as well. And definitely, yes. See, there are, see, when you work with the organization itself, definitely we are working with a huge amount of a content, and the content is going to be sensitive, isn't it? So when I say sensitive, it can be any kind of a sensitive information. It can be your passport details, it can be your credit card details, it can be your health related details, it can be your banking details, anything it can be, isn't it? Now, the thing is basically maybe the sensitive data is not being classified or protected. This is something really not acceptable. No, if the data is not being classified, if it is not being protected, what are you risking? You're risking to the all day-to-day regulatory violations. No, so there would be a huge amount of a compliance risk. So what is happening? The organization is eager, but they often overlook the foundational prerequisites. Now, other challenge becomes low user readiness. Now the users are not ready, or maybe they are completely unaware. This is something which is not always highlighted. But yes, this is one of the key factors. Employees are unaware of the Copilot capabilities. Now, if unaware of the capabilities, definitely it is going to lead to the poor adoption, isn't it? No. And for the organization itself, it becomes there is a huge gap of a governance. Reason why? Because you don't have any clear policies that okay on what Copilot can access. Now the thing is, Copilot accesses what? Copilot needs an access to the data, and you know that okay that this data is being widely spread, isn't it? When I say widely spread, that means okay, you've got a SharePoint, you've got a Teams, you've got a Microsoft Exchange, you've got a OneDrive, you've got a Yammer, isn't it? You've got a groups, you've got a chats, you've got a channels in the Teams, isn't it? And the data is being completely being widely being spread. So if in case now the organization is facing a challenge, okay, we don't have any clear policies. Okay, what kind of a content can the Copilot can access? Or what kind of a responses are going to be generated? Now, this is something, the biggest concern, which is simply leading to the what? To the trust issues. No. Now, Now, looking to the problem statement, we understood what can be the challenges, what the organization. This is just one. There can be many. This is one of the problem statement which I have come up through, but there can be many. Now, looking to the problem statement, now we understood, isn't it? So then, if I talk about from the key prerequisites, definitely yes, we are going to focus on each and every category, whether it is for identity. Now, if I talk about identity, definitely yes, as we are using the Microsoft cloud service like Microsoft 365 or Azure, let me tell you that Intra ID is one of the products, is one of the solutions, is one of the services which comes as a PaaS, platform as a service. And this is as good as my tenant, and that tenant belongs to the customer. So when I'm talking about, let's say, for example, Microsoft 365, or if I'm talking about Azure, or if I'm talking about Windows Intune, or if I'm talking about, let's say, DevOps, anything it can be. What is happening? They are using Intro ID as the backbone. They are using what? Intro ID. Now, what exactly the intro ID is? This is simply, you can say, it's as good as my IDP, identity provider, IDP. So intro ID is something, the one which helps us to maintain and manage identities. There can be various different types of identities. You've got a different types of users, like the cloud user is there, the guest user is there, the hybrid user is there, isn't it? And managed identities are there, devices are there. So definitely yes, at that point of time, the identity becomes one of the, I won't say it's the only one. No, it's one of the sections. Why? Because every now and then what we say, okay, it's always the best approach that multi-factor authentication should be enforced. Definitely yes. And that too, you can restrict with the access control. Now, access control can be implemented with help of policies, and that policy comes as a conditional access. Now, when I say conditional, that means the conditions can be like, say, for example, these are actually called signals. All right. In the context of conditional access, these are being referred as signals, like which user, which group, all right, from which device, and let's say from which application, from which particular platform, from which particular browser, from which location, from which particular IP address. What are these? These are all being referred as signals. We can use a combination of all of these signals in the conditional. See, by the name itself, it says conditional access. Means access is going to be granted based on the condition. And what are these? These conditions are these signals. So you can imagine if these policies are in place, we can restrict a huge setup. And you're implementing with the security part. So no matter whether it is going to be for the different departments and divisions, branches, you can have several different conditional access policies, isn't it? Say for example, okay, a user, and the user belongs down to the HR team, isn't it? And the HR needs an access to the some sort of an application. Let's say there is an onboarding application. So, and that application has been integrated with my intro ID, isn't it? If that application has been registered with the intro ID, okay, the HR needs an access to that one. So definitely, I'm gonna implement some sort of a policies saying that, okay, hey, if the users, they belong to the HR team, the devices should be compliant with application, okay, onboarding application, from which particular platform, okay, they must be using Windows. And let's say, for example, from which particular browser, okay, hey, Chrome. From which location, okay, so say for example, United States, and which IP address, this one. So what are you defining? You're defining with the list of signals based on that one, whether to allow whether to deny here itself this way. Along with that one, the data governance. This is something very important. Why? Because it's always a good approach to assign with the labels. Labeling is very good. Why? Because you understand the type of the content. Now let's say for example, okay, I'll give you an example. Confidential, high confidential. All right. So what are these? These are nothing but the example of the labels. Now imagine you're opening up a document and that document is a sensitive data which is containing the credit card details or the banking details, isn't it? Or the travel details or the health related details. And the organization, they can label it. Okay, this is a confidential. Confidential means, okay, you are classifying. And based on to that one itself, further on you can restrict whether to share, whether to download, whether to print. You can restrict. There are so many actions. Plus, definitely into the data governance, you're going to set up with the retention, how long the content is going to be retained, plus the compliance monitoring. So overall, if you see, okay, hey, for the content readiness, yes, definitely you're going to enable some sort of auditing. And the best approach says that, okay, why not to organize the files? And SharePoint becomes one location. This is something, the one which is quite oftenly being recommended. Reason, within the SharePoint itself, you can have what? You can have sites, you can have libraries, isn't it? You can have libraries. And all of these libraries can be organized. And from the security baseline, you're going to integrate with some of the products. And definitely for the users training, this is the end user training, providing with the workshops, guiding, and see, this is what exactly is happening for you. You're getting some sort of a user training, you're getting some overview, you're getting some readiness checks, isn't it? So if I try to look up from the use case scenario, imagine seeing that, okay, hey, there is a sales department, all right, and the context says the sales team wants Copilot. They want Copilot, but the question here comes up, why? Why do they need? They said, okay, they want to draft what? They want to draft the proposals and they want to summarize what? The customer's interaction. See, sales team are always into the customer's interaction, isn't it? So the context is that they want to use Copilot. Now the challenge is the data. The files are scattered. Chats are there into the libraries, into the OneDrive, into the Exchange, into the emails as attachments, isn't it? Now the problem is no content is being labeled. This is simply risking exposure to the client contracts. And definitely the sales staff is lacking the training because they don't know how to use a Copilot or how Copilot can help them. So looking to the situation and a scenario, see, this is one practical scenario. This is one real scenario which I'm talking about. Similarly, there can be many. There can be many. So what would be the approach of that organization? Obviously, the approach would be, yes, for the identity, let's go and enable multi-factor, let's go and enable the conditional access, let's go and start labeling the content. Labels, apply the confidential. This is just an example. It can be highly confidential, general, important, anything it can be. What they do, they start labeling the contracts, they start labeling the proposals, and definitely the content readiness, they're centralizing the files into the teams. They're putting up the tags. And for the security baseline, okay, they brought the DLP. Reason, with the DLP, they are about to block external sharing of the contracts. Why? Why? Because those contracts have been labeled as confidential and it is a sensitive information. That means that no such sensitive information is going to be shared externally. And definitely, yes, the end user training so that they can conduct the workshop. They showcase, okay, how Copilot can draft proposals securely. So having this in place, definitely the organization is going to have a better outcome. No, zero compliance violations, sales staff gain confidence, and definitely you see a measurable ROI from the Copilot investment as well. Why? Because Whenever you want to invest in any kind of a product, definitely you want to look up, okay, what is going to be the ROI, isn't it? So see how useful that product is all about, isn't it? Similarly, if I talk about the strategies, what sort of a strategies? The strategies to drive the user readiness, whether the user is ready and to adopt. So let's try to understand with the problem statement. Now, the problem statement says that driving the user readiness and adoption of what? For the Copilot. So now, whether the users are ready, whether the organization is ready, that becomes a challenge. And every organization faces so many several challenges, isn't it? Certain times, this is something very common, huh? No, employees are hesitant. This one. That means it brings a question for what? For trust, for privacy, isn't it? Okay, they're hesitant to trust the AI-driven outputs. Reason being, the privacy risk is a concern, whether it is going to violate my compliance or also not. That means this showcases nothing but the low user confidence, inconsistent adoption. Now, this is sometimes it can be common. Why? Because maybe some departments they adopt, some departments they don't, and each of them they are adopting unevenly. Means no standards, no guidelines, no instructions, and they're just adopting it. So now, if in case this becomes inconsistent adoption, and when you go with the inconsistent adoption, definitely it leads to the fragmented workflows, and the result is reduced ROI. And based on to that one, if in case if it has been not being taken care of, what are you doing? So your sensitive data can be exposed easily, and definitely the lack of training. No. So from looking to the problem statement, when it comes down to the driver user readiness and adoption, what can be the solution now? See, let's try to understand with one of the practical scenario, a use case. Imagine, okay, there is a finance department. Although there are many other departments, you got a sales, you got a marketing, you got a HR, you got a IT, you got a accounts, you got a logistics, isn't it? There are so many departments, and every department is very eager to adopt the 365 Copilot. So the problem is basically now the thing is what challenge they are facing, what struggles they are facing, preparing the reports manually, ensuring the financial data is not leaked, or most importantly, the employees hesitant to trust the AI tools. So what is going to be the approach? The approach says that, okay, let's finance users are onboarded with what? Implementing with the conditional access and MFA. See, again and again, they are focusing to the similar solution, isn't it? Why? Because these are all the security measures. Why? Because with the conditional access, at least you can ensure this is something, the one which falls under zero trust principle. Now, when I say zero trust principle, that means that the zero trust principle says that never trust. Then if in case if I want to never trust, what I'm going to do, I have to verify everything. What do I need to do? I need to verify everything. So when I say everything, that means that what are you bringing in? You're bringing in nothing but the conditional access, which I mentioned earlier. What are you bringing in? You're bringing in the conditional access policies. And that too, you're going with a multi-factor authentication. So now the thing is basically the another concern, ensuring the sensitivity financial data is not being leaked. What is the first thing first which they are going to look up? Definitely they are going to tag, they are going to label. With what? With the confidential finance. This is just an example of a label. So that when you start working with a Copilot, at least the Copilot understands, okay, I need to take care of the privacy. Privacy is a priority. So the Copilot does understand and respects the compliance boundaries as well. So in such cases, the Copilot can help you. Okay, I have to consider, I have to take care of your privacy itself so that your sensitive data is not being shared. And definitely how Copilot can summarize your audit logs and generate with the draft compliant reports. Yes, it does require some small training as well. So that was the very first thing first, which you got introduced with, isn't it? That there is a line of training which has been planned for all of you. So that is it. This is how we start moving in. And definitely, yes, you got a governance policies too. So every organization, they do follow with such problem statements and the solution approaches as well. So if I try to understand from the key strategies of the user readiness, definitely yes, the first thing first would be securing the user access. And that too, now you're quite familiar that, okay, such solutions have to be embedded. And also this is something, one of the key factors, role-based permission. This is RBAC. This is very important. Role-based access control. Why? Because this again comes as part of the zero trust principle. Into the zero trust principle, we say least privileged access. Or you can easily remember with a short form LPA, least privileged access. So this is something which is relates to the RBAC. Always remember that one. Why? Because we have to be very clear to whom what delegation has to be given, what rights to be given, what permissions to be given. That means you are very clear with the scope. You are very clear about the set of permissions, that to whom what access to be given. Reason, if I don't have that clarity, this creates a confusion. So to avoid that confusion, it's always better to make it very clear to whom. Why? Because you're defining with a scope, you're defining with a set of permission, plus the person to whom you are going to delegate, they are also accountable, isn't it? Why? Because what the task which has been given to me, what the rights have been given to me, I'm accountable for that. So tomorrow, if in case something happens with the privilege or the access which has been given, I'm going to be accountable for that. So the people to whom we are delegating, they should know that, okay, we are accountable for the activity which you are going to perform. So this should be very clearly being defined. And that too, further itself, when it comes down to the 365 apps deployment, you can make sure that your Copilot is available as list of apps. Why? Because this only comes up with the help of license. That means the organization should have a valid, appropriate license as well. Now, going with the DLP itself, see, the DLP can help you to set up with the sensitivity labels and protect your sensitive information as well. And for your training and communication, what are you using? You're using workshops, audio summaries, interactive guides, PowerPoints, isn't it? And that too, with the real world scenarios, what you're looking at right now, isn't it? And when it comes down to the, again, with a new problem statement, that means adopting the co-pilot facing the challenges. Why? Why? Because in balancing the productivity gains or with the data protection. Now, sometimes it happens the data oversharing. What happens? Employees, they might unintentionally, see, unintentionally, they can expose sensitive files, weak access with the weak permissions, no proper retention, insider risks are there, ransomware attacks are there, isn't it? So looking to this situation itself, then see, so all of these scenarios, it can be applicable to any kind of a department. And if you see the solution which is coming in, which is very close what we have been discussing so far. Same thing, file contains a personal identification information or HR staff worry about accidental sharing and the leadership demands compliance with the GDPR and the local labor laws. So what happens? The solution which says, okay, the organization has decided to tag the documents with the HR sensitivity labels, enforcing with a multi-factor and security defender blocking your phishing attempts with the appropriate delegation and with the policies in place. So see how this becomes effective. This is where the security, governance, compliance are coming into picture, isn't it? So when we understand what is the importance, so from the best practices, see, now if I try to understand from the best practices of the data governance, best practices for the security, from the data governance perspective, the first thing first which they recommend is to data classification. And with the data classification itself, it becomes very important for us to specify the labels. So if you look up, let's say here, this is Microsoft Purview. And if you see here from the solutions, we have got a DLP, this one, data loss prevention. And we have got a compliance manager. We have got a communication compliance. And we also have information protection itself. See, this is what I was talking about. And from here itself, you can set up the labels. This is what I was referring. So here itself, you can see there are list of labels which are available. And from here itself, you can set up with the policies. See. So first of all, you can manage, see, there it comes. So let's say, for example, you've got a label like this one, confidential, highly confidential, project based, personal based, and you can create your own label as well. And plus you can define with the scope. So let's say, for example, okay, very important. All right, I'm just giving up a name itself. All right, you can use any significant label name itself also if you want to. This is just to showcase you. Okay, yeah, this one. And you can name it as well also if you want to. So you can give up a name, you can specify, and then you can move on. So let's say, and then you can specify your scope, your items, your SharePoint sites, and the other label details as well also if you want. So having this, what you can do, what are you having up? You're having that label ready, isn't it? And once the label is ready, you can publish them. Let's say, for example, okay, hey, I've got a label, I can publish. Which label? Let's say confidential. All right. So you can pick and choose and say add. So depending on which particular label you want to publish and how you want to publish itself, isn't it? So you can add them here. So you can choose any of them if you want to. And then you can specify the scope and to whom you want to publish. So that at least that can be applied. So people, they have got a privilege so that they can apply the labels by themselves. Or if in case you also have the flexibility where you can auto publish. This is something very useful where you can auto publish the labels so that it can identify. Let's say for example, okay, I want to go with a custom policy. And which label you want to publish. I say this one, auto publish, I mean to say. And then specify the scope. Okay, I want to choose the location. My data resides into Exchange. And I can set up with the advanced rules. Then okay, how it can identify and you can specify the conditions. Say for example, okay, that data contains some sensitive info. It contains, let's say for example, the credit card details and they are stored in my Exchange as an attachments or you're sending them. So what are you defining? You're creating that content. You're defining that condition. So if the condition is being met, it is going to set up with the rules and emails only. And for the initial phase, you can run the policy in a simulation mode. So thing is basically see how it really benefit the organization itself, isn't it? And what are you using? You're using nothing but the sensitivity labels. Similarly, it's always a good approach that okay, you can go with the retention and life cycle. Now, retention, why retention? Why? Because certain times, let's say, for example, you are going to work for a project and that project is going to be for 5 years or 6 years or 10 years, isn't it? So definitely you want to retain those contents. That means archiving. For how long you want to retain? When you want to get to be deleted, reason you want to regulate with the compliance. And this entire monitoring for the compliance happens with the Purview Compliance Manager. So from the best practices for the security itself, again, they say that the multi-factor authentication should be enabled. And for the threat protection, they are going to use the Defender. And to protect your sensitive data, they are going to use the DLP. So these are what? These are nothing but the measures. And this again comes as a part of my policies. So if you see here, under the Microsoft Purview, you've got something which is called DLP, this one, data loss prevention. And you can set up the policies saying that, for instance, you can create multiple policies, but again, it depends on the rules and the conditions, how it can be very useful. It can be very helpful. And definitely, yes, when it comes down to the security of the data itself, it helps us to prevent from sharing those contents as well. So let's say, for example, okay, I want to create up a policy and I'll just show you with one of the sample one. If you see here, see how useful it will be, isn't it? So let's say I want to apply with the, see there are so many locations of the data, isn't it? Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, devices, and on-premise as well. See, onto the workloads which are running on the on-prem. Isn't it, this is very helpful. So let's say, for example, if I want to apply the DLP at the email, and we can set up a rule. Now, if a rule says that, say, for example, the condition says that, okay, the content is going to contain some sensitive information like passport. There are some passport details. And I say that, okay, user actions to protect. I can restrict access. And I can block the access as well. Block everyone, block every people from the outside of organization itself. And definitely, yes, the users are going to be notified, okay, when they are going to use with the sensitive data, when they're trying to share, and the same reports can be generated. So overall, if you try to see how useful this feature becomes, and definitely from the encryption perspective, you are using the AIP. So now from the delegation perspective, if I'm talking about from the best practices, it's always a good approach that you should be using RBAC. Now be very careful. Why? Because it again depends which service. Now when I say which service, say for example, if I talk about Microsoft 365, if I talk about Azure, if I talk about Windows Intune, if I talk about DevOps, and it can be anything. So RBAC comes with each and every service. Be very careful. So basically this RBAC helps us to assign the permission. Reason, let's say for example, okay, in Microsoft 365, I want to make someone as as a SharePoint admin, isn't it? That means I'm looking for an appropriate RBAC. Now RBAC comes with a default, or you can go with a custom. Custom means tailored. You come with the tailored roles, custom, granular, whatever you want to use it, granular. So this helps us to define with the delegation. So if you look up, if I go down to the intra, see this is the intra, and this is just to give you a glimpse that, okay, there are so many different roles, see, and Microsoft gives you flexibility that you can create your own custom role as well. There are so many built-in ones. There are so many built-in. You've got an application admin, you've got a hybrid admin, you've got a global admin. It's a big list. So we have to be very specific that to which service, what role, what access has to be given. So depending on whether you want to stick with the default roles, whether you want to go with a custom or tailored or granular. And based on to that one, along with that, for the best practices of the access control, it's always a best approach that they should get up a conditional access. Now, this is what I was referring earlier. See, if you go down to the intra and there itself you find conditional access here. See, so let's say, for example, if I want to create up a policy and let's give up a name. Okay, HR department. All right, and I want to create up a conditional access policies which users I'm going to pick up. Let's say users from the HR department. I can pick up the group as well, and then target. Target means what application they are going to access, which resources. Let's say selected which application. So let's say, for example, they want to access something like Office 365. I'm just giving you an example, all right? So you're defining the conditions, you're defining the signals, all right? And network, from which IP, from which location. I say, okay, they can connect from any network location. And based onto that itself, grant access, whether you want to allow, whether you want to grant or whether you want to block. And plus, for security reason, you can enable the multi-factor. See, this is what I was talking about. So what are you doing? You're combining a combination of the policies along with the access, along with the security measures. That means if the user tries to log in, if the conditions are being met, he will be forced to go with the multi-factor authentication, and then only he is going to get an access. You're going to grant. Otherwise, if the conditions are not being met, they can't. What it brings to? It brings to the conditional access. Similarly, from the access control perspective, it is always a good approach that you should be using Microsoft 365 groups. Why groups? Why? Because if you see here, let's say groups, What you can find? You can say all employees, executives, finance team, leadership, legal team, isn't it? Operations, retail, sales and marketing. So what are you doing? You're creating multiple groups. The way you can create, the way you can easily manage. Why? Because this gives you a structured collaboration. Plus, along with that one, using auditing and e-discovery. E-discovery is simple, which is quite oftenly being used for a legal investigation. You can use investigation. Why? Because with this one, you can open the cases and you can start collecting what? You can start collecting the evidences. And definitely, yes, you're going to figure it out so that it becomes easy for you to track the activity plus ensuring the legal readiness. With what? By using the e-discovery, and that comes as part of my purview. See. So how strong this tool is, see, in the Microsoft Purview itself, you've got something which is called e-discovery here, this one. So this is Microsoft Purview comes with a bundle of solutions. It comes with a bundle of solutions. And I was talking about auditing. This is very useful. Why? Because keeping a track of the user activities. What are these? These are nothing but these are all the measures which can be considered and are being recommended as per the best practice. So that at least you can keep a track who is doing what, tracking the activities. So that happens with the auditing. And when it comes down to the evaluating and preparing the contents, why? Because this is something which I gave you mentioned earlier, that the content is going to be widely stored or distributed, isn't it? Maybe the data is in a SharePoint, the data is in OneDrive, the data is in Teams, or the data is in your emails. It can be anywhere itself. Now the problem is, again, see, organization, they want to deploy, but they often struggle with the content readiness. My content is not ready. Where are the content stored? They are being widely distributed. How? That means it can be a possibility that, okay, there is unstructured data. Why? Because the data can be spread across without consistent metadata. Duplicacy, outdated, means no versioning. Multiple files, access issues. No? So how would you ensure that your content is ready? How are you going to evaluate? How are you going to prepare? Having this situation itself, see, again with the same scenario. Now comes with the marketing department. Now what the marketing team says, that, okay, I want to use the Copilot. Why? I want to generate up the campaign reports and the draft proposals. Now the challenge for them is the data is being quite often being stored into the Teams channels. They're being spread across the libraries. They're being spread across the personal OneDrives. This is very common for us. And no labeling, lack of metadata, and very often they start sharing the outdated version. See, this is also one of the challenge. See, certain times you start sharing the outdated version. People, they get confused, isn't it? So that leads to the confusion. And definitely it results into the compliance risk itself. Now, if that is the situation, if that means my content is not ready, I was talking about evaluating and preparing the content, but my content is not ready here itself. Why? Why? Because due to these challenges. So how you're going to make them prepare? Definitely the solution approach, which says, okay, let's try to audit. Why? Because you have to run with a content inventory access. Reason? Why? Because you have to identify the duplicates. You have to identify the outdated files. You have to figure it out which data is sensitive. Why? Because before we can go with the classification, Most importantly, we say that know your data. It is not a simple term. It carries a very important know your data. If in case, if I'm able to know what my data is, what type of a data is, it becomes easy for me to figure it out whether it is sensitive or not, isn't it? Whether it is sensitive or not. See, that is why when we start knowing the data itself, it becomes easy for the classification, policies, retentions, isn't it? So that kind of an approach becomes, and when it comes with the common pitfalls, see this is also very common, no? And what kind of a common pitfalls and how to avoid them, more or less, see, unprepared content, weak identities, over permissioning, compliance blind spots, user resistance, over reliance. So the problem lies with all the statements and the problem situations what we have just discussed. So they can encounter avoidable pitfalls, and definitely that slows the adoption and increases the risk, isn't it? So if this is a problem, then now coming up with the same situation, see? So every department comes with a similar kind of a problem. They want to prepare with the quarterly compliance reports. Files are scattered, no labeling, no tagging, and leadership fears a regulatory violation during audits. So looking to these ones, there can be so many different practical or real scenarios, isn't it? What every department would be facing, isn't it? So looking from that perspective itself, say, avoid the content chaos. It's always good to conduct a content audit. Labeling. What labels? With the retention. That okay, how long you want to retain. So let's say, for example, if I go down here itself, see here. See, when you go down to the data lifecycle and retention policies, see, that can help you to retain. Now, these are what? These are nothing but the measures which have to be taken. These are certain kind of a solutions which have to be embedded. So let's say, for example, okay, there is a policy. There is a retention policy. Now we understand what the term retention says, isn't it? So for example, there is again, there is no kind of a thumb rule. There is no thumb rule. It's again based on the decision. Let's say, for example, okay, they want to apply the labeling to all the mailboxes, to all the SharePoint, and you can enable it if you want to. For how long you want to retain? What action would you like to take after the retention finishes? So what are you handling? You're handling with the retention policies in a combination of DLP rules. Why? Why? Because you want to protect the financial data. So see, now overall, at least now you got some understanding that how useful the product becomes, helpful, and what solutions to be followed, what recommendations to be taken care of. And definitely, yes, now if the organization has already planned to go ahead with the Copilot itself, definitely there are certain kind of a prerequisites, the versions and the service, and more importantly, the license. So when it comes down to the best practices, as you're preparing to launch with the Copilot itself, yes, identify the early adopters, individuals. Why? Because based on the adoption itself, you're going to get up the employee feedbacks as well. A reason to improve your user training. And more importantly, the RBAC, which I consistently have been mentioning, RBAC, this one. And that too with the just enough access. There is something which is called, I'll just give you a brief about that one, JIT, just in time, and GIA, just enough access. So one is just in time, one is just enough access. So just in time can be related with, let's say for example, with a PIM. PIM is one of the very good features, privileged identity management. This is meant for roles, RBAC, and that gives you a restriction with a time-based access. Let's say for example, okay, I want to delegate someone as a SharePoint admin. I want to make someone as a SharePoint admin, and or let's say for example, I want to give someone as a help desk admin, and I want to give that privilege for 2 hours. So that means I can restrict for the duration that, okay, whenever he performs the activity, he gets activated only for 2 hours for that particular privilege. I can restrict with the time duration. That, okay, whenever the user logs in, if the role gets activated, it gets activated only for 2 hours. So time-based restriction. And the just enough access, this is task-based. This is task-based. Task-based, let's say for example, let's say in Exchange Online. In Exchange Online, let's say for example, okay, I want to give up a user so that he can create policies. I want to create up a policy for inbox. What I want to create up a? I want to create up a policy for the inbox. That means a task-based. I'm performing up a task. So this just enough access can be task-based. That means you can restrict that, okay, only person can only perform a certain kind of a task. And here itself, with the JIT, with the PIM, you're going with a role-based. GIA is task-based, PIM is RBAC, role-based. So in all these cases, it's always a good approach saying that to help ensure the right users are having access to the right content. That is why just enough access. And it really helps from preventing the data oversharing. Why? Because with the permissions. And this data oversharing can be restricted with the help of DLP, data loss prevention. So it's always good to prepare your data, and we already discussed about the data governance best practices, documented data policies, restricted data labeling, tagging with the data itself, isn't it? So that preparation has to be done. And there are so many tools. We talked about the purview. So it all comes as a bundle here. It comes as a bundled solution, whether it is your communication compliance, whether it is for your data lifecycle management retention, data protection, data loss prevention, e-discovery for the legal cases, labeling, information protection, data classification. So what are these? These are nothing but the bundled solution which comes as part of my Microsoft Purview. So this gives you a complete one package where you can control the governance with all of these policies. So definitely yes, Microsoft does provide you various tools. Now you saw with the conditional access policies, which was a part of my intra, and the PIM, which gives you the JIT access, just-in-time access. So along with that one itself, it is also being recommended that you should be having the appropriate licenses in place. Obviously, yes, when it comes down to the adoption, the appropriate license has to be in place too. And that license has to be assigned to the users. So from the overview perspective itself, see that is how these services are quite applicable. And definitely the copilots can be extended. You can have your agents, you can enable with the other products, connectors, plugins are there, isn't it? So you can see how Copilot becomes quite effective. And obviously, yes, there are so many different access management and services and admin centers. See, if you look up 365 admin center, see how many admin centers we have. Security is there, Purview is there, Intune is there, Identity is there, Exchange is there, SharePoint is there. So based on to the different teams, based on the different departments, the appropriate access has to be given. There are so many services which are coming in, isn't it? So we talked about the conditional access policies, we referred about the signals, isn't it, which I showed it to you. And based on to the, you can allow or grant, and you can enforce the multi-factor authentication as well. So all of these measures can help you to manage. And this is the one which helps the end users to reset their passwords so that at least they are not approaching to the help desk team or a global admin to reset their password. They can reset by themselves. And this happens very easily with the help of questions. So they can answer the questions and these questions can be registered. So when it comes down to the reset of the password, they can answer the questions, and based on to that, it becomes easy. But if I want to implement this feature itself, which is not enabled by default, definitely yes, what do I need? I need intra premium license. So what is this? This is also one of the solution which has been recommended. These are all measures which have to be considered. And definitely, yes, when it comes down to the conditional access policies, there are so many default settings. How to overcome, how to customize them, we saw that one too, isn't it? That's RBAC. See, this is what I always insist again and again, appropriate RBAC, how to customize. Whether you want to stick with the default, whether you want to stick with the custom rules as well. See, and this is very service specific. Remember that one. Whether which service you want to delegate, whether you're delegating for the defender, whether you're delegating for the compliance, for the purview, whether you're delegating for the intro ID. So it's always that they maintain roles for different places, for different services, plus the scope. That too with the default and custom rules. All right. So you saw with that one, and definitely yes, from the best practices, always follow that. Okay, the least privilege should be done, implementing with a PIM, which I told you earlier, just in time. So this will help you to grant access for a specific time for a period. If the time frame expires, it removes the access. Enforcing MFA, limit the number of global admins. So what are these? These are nothing but the approaches. So how to delegate, we saw that one. And here itself you can find all those roles. If I go down to the 365 Admin Center, you can find all the roles here itself. Here at this place, you can find all the roles. So depending on which role to whom you want to delegate. So this is applicable for that one itself. So see, and definitely yes, the SharePoint also gives you the flexibility where you can control the permissions at the site level, at the library level, at the content level. So SharePoint gives you a flexibility. Into the SharePoint, let me just give you some highlight. Into the SharePoint itself, we have something which is called site collection. Then into the SharePoint itself, we have sites under the site collection, which is called a child site. And under the child site itself, we have library. or a list, and then we've got a folder, and then we've got a content like this. So we organize the content into the SharePoint into this hierarchy, and SharePoint gives us a flexibility where we can where we can control the permissions in a more granular way. More granular way itself, so that it becomes easy and it can help you from the oversharing of the content. All right. And definitely, yes, the PIM which I mentioned earlier with the restricted access. Why? Because the highlight is just in time. So this is one of the key roles as well. And along with that one itself, the access to the apps, this all happens with the license. That okay, what license is being assigned to the user. See here itself. If you go down to the users, what license is being assigned, see that defines what access to the apps you will be having. See down below, based on the license assigned, whether they are going to get an access to the Teams and other services as well. So this is applicable only based on what license is being assigned to whom, to the end user. So this gives the restricted that which apps, and that too totally depends on the what license has been given to the end user this way. And definitely when you start moving up to the Microsoft 365, they are working with the applications, and you can manage with the updates and deployment as well. And from the security itself, see they're having your Intune Admin Center that is also helping you out from the endpoint security, devices, especially with the devices security. That is where the Intune comes, which helps you to define with the security policies. Like which applications would you like to allow? What restrictions, what firewall settings, what antivirus versions. So you can restrict and you can impose the security baselines here itself. See, Intune. This is the one. So at least now you have got some bigger picture itself that how an organization can leverage with all of these policies and restrictions in terms of security, governance, and compliance. So see, security baselines. If I give you an example, say, okay, security baseline for Windows 10, it can create up a policy. So this helps you to restrict with the policies. Now let's say, for example, if I see here, I can define so many restrictions. Okay, whether the auditing to be enabled or browser restrictions, or let's say, for example, firewall, whether you want to turn on the firewall. So what are you defining? You're creating up a security baseline, and these baselines can be assigned to the devices which have been onboarded with the Intune. Now that is the same situation when you're working with the work devices. These work devices are completely being registered with the Intune, and they have all these policies in place, which restricts you. So you're not going to manage each and every device manually itself. You're controlling them with the help of policies. What are you ensuring? You're ensuring the nothing but the endpoint security. Where are you managing them? Intune. And here itself, the devices have to be onboarded. Which kind of a devices? It can be Windows, it can be Android, Apple device, Linux devices, Windows devices, Apple mobile. all these devices can be onboarded, registered, and then you can enforce the policies to them. So what are you accomplishing? You're accomplishing nothing but the endpoint security. All right. So with this itself, we are almost coming down to the end of the discussion itself. See the DLP which I talked about earlier, how useful that solution is going to be. It can help us, isn't it? All right. So we still have some last 8 minutes. All right. And I would now pass on the mic and the information to you itself so that if you've got any questions, uh, so with this learning right now, you understood, you've got a bigger picture itself right now that okay, how useful this product is and for every given organization itself, how much the content really matters, but because the content is an asset, the protection, security, governance, compliance matters the most for those assets, isn't it? So now you have got a overview that okay, how useful that product is going to be, what solutions you can think about, and how they are going to help the organization to achieve and to attain those solutions based on the problem statements what you understood. I hope with this entire discussion, you have now the visibility to various problem statements, challenges, and actual real use cases with the scenarios and what solutions are being recommended to achieve the overall better outcome, isn't it?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Rajesh. Great overview. I didn't see any questions pop into the Q&A, but if anyone has any, feel free to put them in there
Oh,
now
is
and we
it?
can.
Surprisingly, the chat has been so silent, huh?
Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there. We have a few extra minutes to answer those. If not, feel free to, if any pop up after the session, feel free to send them our way and we can definitely answer those after today's session concludes. But thanks again, everybody, for joining, and thanks, Rajesh, again for an amazing overview. If you would
Uh,
like to build on this session, we do offer the full day course of the MS-4002 content. So we'll send some information
exactly.
out around that as well.
Through the entire one-day training for MS 4002 itself, that will really help them to understand from the configuration aspect, setup, test for the labs, and other scenarios as well.
Absolutely.
Let me check on with them itself. I hope everyone. I would like to uh, get some info from you. I hope this entire learning gave you a really good exposure and overview about governance, security, compliance, and other measures what we can take, understanding the real use cases and the problem statements, isn't it? I hope that has been very, very useful and very informative for all of you. Can I get a quick response onto the chat? I would really appreciate to
Microphones
hear.
are disabled, so it would
I know,
be
I know.
yeah.
At least I can hear onto the chat. At least I can read out the responses onto the chat. They
Awesome.
can type the text, right? See, that is how they can interact at the moment. That is what they can do. Yes,
Perfect.
only one, huh? Others, what do you say? Hmm. Yes, definitely. Yes, Martin. I need a deeper dive on AI governance. That's just where all the learnings are going to come in. I hope this has been very, very useful and very informative in the past 60 to 80 minutes of discussion. At least now you've got some visibility what is what we're talking about. And more importantly, it is not how to implement. It is basically, what exactly you're looking for, why you're looking for, when it is needed, and how it can be done. So when you are able to answer all of these questions, what you're looking for, why you're looking for, when it is needed, and then comes how it can be accomplished. So this was just to give you a fairly a brief information and introduction about. We didn't went into the details very frankly itself. We just highlighted with a top level to give you a understanding that okay, how crucial it becomes for any given organization, the governance, security, and compliance, how they are important for them for any kind of a data, for any kind of a asset, for any kind of a content, isn't it?
Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, look out for some follow-up information from us as well as a recording of today's session. Thank you again for attending, and thank you again, Rajesh. Look out for Amanda will follow up with some additional details around a survey that'll just help us improve these sessions, or again, just share your feedback on the things you enjoyed about them as we continue to deliver the Copilot webinar series in the future. So thank you all again. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the session today, and please follow up if you have any additional questions. Thank you.
I hope it was a very, very enjoyable and a very nice session for all of you. At least you can react on that one, give up a thumbs up. At least you can, yeah. Oh, namaste. That is something really good to hear. Martin. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
Thanks, Rajesh.
hey, Amanda, thank you.
No problem. Have a good day, guys.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.